These days, movie fans are constantly bombarded with trailers, posters, and new information about all kinds of tentpole franchise films. On the flip side, however, there are a few upcoming movies that have managed to fly under the radar. From sci-fi epics to action-packed thrillers, here are some of the sequels you might not know are being made. After years of speculation that a fourth Matrix film was in the works, Variety broke the news in August 2019 that a new installment in the series was indeed on the horizon, and that, despite previous rumors, it wouldn't be following a new character after all. Original stars Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss will be returning for The Matrix 4, along with original writer and director Lana Wachowski.
Whoa.
And while Wachowski may have partnered with her sister Lily to make the first 3 Matrix movies, the fourth installment will have only the one Wachowski at the helm. In addition to Wachowski, the script for The Matrix 4 will be co-written by Alexander Hemon and David Mitchell, and is set to start production in early 2020. No plot details have yet been revealed for the movie, and it isn't yet clear how the film plans to incorporate Moss or Reeves' characters, who were killed in the third film in the franchise, The Matrix Revolutions. It is equally unclear whether Lawrence Fishburne's character Morpheus will be making an appearance. Some sources have speculated that he may be recast in order to appear as a younger version of the character, but that remains speculation for now. James Cameron has been talking about his Avatar sequels almost from the moment the first film exploded onto screens in 2009, smashing box office records and eventually becoming the highest-grossing film of all time. However, despite years of Cameron's repeated promises of a vast and expansive Avatar franchise, it was beginning to feel as though a follow-up was as far off and unreachable as the moon of Pandora itself. But believe it or not, 4 more Avatars really do appear to be imminent. In fact, according to Sigourney Weaver, the first 2 have already finished shooting. They've even got titles: Avatar: The Way of Water, Avatar: The Seedbearer, Avatar: The Tolkien Rider, and Avatar: The Quest for Eywa. What does it all mean? Well, no one knows, except James Cameron himself and his eclectic cast, which, in addition to the original movie stars, also features a host of newcomers, including Edie Falco, Kate Winslet, Michelle Yeoh, Jermaine Clement, and Vin Diesel. Everyone else will have to wait until the end of 2021 to find out. Avatar: The Way of Water is scheduled for release on December 17, 2021, with Avatar: The Seedbearer arriving on December 22, 2023, Avatar: The Tolkien Rider following on December 19, 2025, and Avatar: The Quest for Eywa concluding the franchise on December 17, 2027. As the crew of the Nostromo learned the hard way all the way back in 1979, it's pretty hard to kill an alien, and the Alien franchise seems just as tough as the creature itself. Reflecting on his landmark sci-fi horror film on its 40th anniversary, director Ridley Scott told Variety that a third prequel is indeed on the way, intended as a follow-up to 2012's Prometheus and 2017's Alien Covenant. Despite generally positive critical reviews, Covenant underperformed at the box office, throwing the future of the franchise into uncertainty. But following Disney's acquisition of Fox, both Scott and Alien's new studio home seem eager to return to the sinister stars yet again. As for what this third prequel might be about, only one thing is for sure: it won't follow the format of the original Alien. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, Scott talked about the need for the franchise to continue to evolve in order to succeed. He said, "You can't keep repeating the same premise because the joke gets boring." The next Alien film, tentatively titled Alien Awakening, is still in the very early stages, and none of the cast of Covenant has yet been asked to return. Still, Scott maintains 3 things: it's happening, he'll be directing it, and it's currently in the script phase. After the release of the poorly received Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, no one would have blamed Harrison Ford, Steven Spielberg, and everyone else at Lucasfilm if they'd given up on the Indiana Jones franchise altogether. But now it appears that Indy will be back with Indiana Jones 5, which, despite a number of pushbacks and delays, is still theoretically happening. Indiana Jones 5 has gone through a number of screenwriters already, from Crystal Skull scribe David Koepp to Solo's Jonathan Kasdan to This Is Us creator Dan Fogelman, and now apparently back to Koepp. No word has yet been given on what Indiana Jones 5 will be about, although Harrison Ford will be at least 78 when the movie starts filming, so chances are that the adventure will have to be a little less physically rigorous than previous installments.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Of course, it's possible that even the filmmakers don't quite know the movie's plot yet. Speaking to Den of Geek in September of 2019, Koepp said, I'm working on it again, we're still trying, and I think we've got a good idea this time. We'll see. If Indiana Jones 5 is indeed still hanging around in the good idea stage, it's probably got a long way to go before it actually hits theaters. Still, according to everyone involved, it'll get there. Eventually. Bill may have finally been killed at the end of 2004's Kill Bill Volume 2, but that hasn't stopped director Quentin Tarantino from expressing his desire for another sequel to round out the trilogy. According to Tarantino, the third Kill Bill would focus on the daughter of Vernita Green, who is now all grown up and on the hunt for revenge against the person who killed her mother, Uma Thurman's Beatrix. Tarantino has said that he's had talks with Thurman about Kill Bill Volume 3 as recently as July of 2019, telling MTV, "If any of my movies were going to spring from my other movies, it would be a third Kill Bill." Of course, a third Kill Bill may throw a wrench in Tarantino's plans to retire after his 10th film. His 9th, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, hit theaters in the summer of 2019, and his 10th, an upcoming Star Trek film, is currently in the works. Then again, no one but Tarantino himself is going to hold him to a self-imposed film cap if he chooses to keep going. Nothing is finalized for a Kill Bill sequel yet, but it seems as though all that would be needed for it to materialize is simply for Tarantino to decide to pull the trigger. Although rumor has it that a third Sherlock Holmes film has always been part of the plan over at Warner Brothers, Robert Downey Jr. has spent the past decade leading the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the genius, billionaire playboy philanthropist Tony Stark. Saving the world every couple years is obviously a pretty draining gig, and Downey's superhero commitments kept him from being able to take up Sherlock's trademark deerstalker and pipe for a third time. But now that Downey has seemingly exited the MCU for good, he finally has the time to team up with Watson, solve one more case, and take his last bow as the famous detective. The third Sherlock Holmes film will be helmed by Rocketman director Dexter Fletcher, a departure from the first two films, which were both directed by Guy Ritchie. While Sherlock Holmes 3 was originally scheduled to release on Christmas Day 2020, it has since been pushed back a year and will now be striding into theaters in December 2021. The Hitman's Bodyguard wasn't exactly a critical success, earning a pretty lousy Rotten Tomatoes score, but the movie did pretty well at the box office, pulling in almost $177 million worldwide against a $30 million budget. After all, how can an audience possibly say no to the combined charisma of Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson? Well, fans of the first film will be happy to know that The Hitman's Bodyguard is getting a sequel, confusingly titled The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Reynolds and Jackson are both returning, and Salma Hayek is also coming back as the titular wife. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the plot will find Reynolds' bodyguard trying to live a peaceful life when he gets mixed up with Jackson's hitman once more. Along with Hayek, the trio will apparently wreak havoc along the Amalfi Coast in an attempt to save Europe from some as-yet unconfirmed threat. The movie will also star familiar names like Morgan Freeman, Antonio Banderas, Frank Grillo, and Richard E. Grant. If you're hoping for a wild time at the movies, then this is the one for you. Insiders are describing this film as the good, the bad, and the bat crazy. According to Deadline, RoboCop is indeed returning to the big screen sometime soon, although it seems this new film is going to mess around with the franchise's continuity. The original RoboCop was directed by Paul Verhoeven, and it made quite a killing when it was released in 1987. After two sequels starring original actor Peter Weller, the franchise was rebooted in 2014, with actor Joel Kinnaman and director Jose Padilla. The remake wasn't nearly as popular as the first film, and sadly for Mr. Kinnaman, it looks like the new movie is going to ignore the recent remake altogether. The latest entry in the franchise will be called RoboCop Returns, and is written by Ed Neumeyer and Michael Miner, the guys who penned the first film. In fact, RoboCop Returns was apparently written right after the original was released. Sadly, the script never got made into a movie, but now MGM is giving it another go, with the help of some rewrites by Terminator Dark Fate writer Justin Rhodes. Sadly, Peter Weller won't be returning to reprise his Robo role. As for the plot synopsis, Deadline writes, "Anarchy reigns and the fate of Detroit hangs in the balance as RoboCop makes his triumphant return to fight crime and corruption." Though District 9's Neil Blomkamp was initially attached to direct, he announced in August 2019 that scheduling conflicts had forced him to depart the project. In November 2019, Orion Pictures announced that Little Monsters director Abe Forsyth had taken up the helm of RoboCop Returns, and would also be giving the screenplay a fresh rewrite.
Your move, creep.
What do you get when you cross a horde of hungry zombies with a very fast train? A critically acclaimed blockbuster that desperately needs a sequel, apparently. Released in 2016, Train to Busan earned $85 million in its homeland of South Korea and wowed critics across the globe. The plot follows a selfish businessman who's taking his daughter on a train ride to the city of Busan when zombies suddenly start popping up all over the place. At first, the protagonist is only concerned with protecting himself and his kid, but as things get bloodier and bloodier, he starts helping the other passengers escape the oncoming horde. Now it seems writer-director Yun Sang-ho is working on part 2, supposedly titled Bando. The English title is being reported to be Peninsula, which seems to imply that the zombie virus has spread across Korea. Shooting began in the summer of 2019, with a new cast stepping in front of the camera. It's evidently a good time to be in the zombie train business, as New Line is currently working on an American remake of the first film. Of course, if you're new to the whole Train to Busan phenomenon, you can prepare for both the sequel and the reboot by checking out the 2016 thriller in all its bloody glory over on Netflix. Sylvester Stallone and the Expendables 4 have been engaging in a will they, won't they dance for a few years now, but the latest signs seem to point definitively to they will. Taking to his own Instagram account, Stallone announced in July 2019 that the sequel was back on, with a photo of the star in his Expendables gear and the caption, "All of those July 4th fireworks got my mind going. I'm starting to cook up the next adventure." Stallone directed, co-wrote, and starred in the original Expendables, which came out in 2010. He also helped write the existing 2 sequels, although for those, he handed off directorial duties to Simon West for 2 and Patrick Hughes for 3. He walked away from the Expendables 4 back in 2017. But his exit appears to have been only temporary. In addition to Stallone, the Expendables franchise has been a veritable who's who of current and former action superstars, but only Jason Statham and Arnold Schwarzenegger have been confirmed as joining Stallone in the Expendables 4.
I'm back!
If and when Stallone does finalize the 4th installment in the series, though, you can expect the cast list to grow exponentially, with an even more impressive collection of stars than the previous 3 films. After the runaway success of the Hunger Games series of books and films, it seemed likely that audiences would one day return to the dystopian world of Panem, one way or another. And sure enough, in June 2019, publisher Scholastic announced that it would be releasing another novel by Suzanne Collins set in the Hunger Games world. This book would be a prequel, set 64 years before the events of the original story, and would focus on the 10th Hunger Games. In October 2019, the book's title was revealed, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Along with the announcement of the novel came the confirmation that Collins' prequel will also receive the movie treatment. Lionsgate chairman Joe Drake, whose studio adapted the Hunger Games films, said of the book announcement, "As the proud home of the Hunger Games movies, we can hardly wait for Suzanne's next book to be published. We've been communicating with her during the writing process, and we look forward to continuing to work closely with her on the movie." The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is scheduled to hit bookshelves on May 19, 2020, and from the sounds of things, more news about the film adaptation will be right on its heels. Directed by the one and only John Carpenter, Big Trouble in Little China is one of the wackiest action movies ever made. This 1986 fantasy adventure follows trucker Jack Burton as he attempts to save a kidnapped woman from the dark and magical underbelly of San Francisco's Chinatown. With its Mortal Kombat-style warriors and magical sword fights, Big Trouble in Little China has become a beloved classic. So naturally, people were a bit worried when a remake with Dwayne Johnson was announced in 2015. There hasn't been a lot of new info since then, but it's now clear that the new Big Trouble will actually be a sequel. Speaking to Collider, producer Hiram Garcia admitted, "You can't remake a classic like Big Trouble, so what we're planning to do is continue the story. We're going to continue the universe of Big Trouble in Little China." As Garcia went on to explain, the events of the first film will still exist in the new Dwayne Johnson movie. On top of that, The Rock will be playing a brand new character, rather than Jack Burton. So it seems they're taking a page from the Jurassic World playbook by crafting a movie that exists in a pre-established timeline, but also serves as a kind of reboot for a new generation. Unfortunately, Kurt Russell has told USA Today that he probably won't be in the sequel, so Burton himself sadly won't be back in the action for this one. Nobody messes with the Jesus. Except for John Turturro, that is. After all, Turturro played the purple-clad Jesus in The Big Lebowski, and even though he's only on screen for 2 scenes, the pervy bowler apparently made enough of an impression to warrant his own spin-off movie. Once called Going Places, it's now known as The Jesus Rules, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the dude.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
The plot follows Jesus, who's just been released from jail after he was framed for a crime he didn't commit. Now a free man, he teams up with 2 friends and goes on a wild road trip. According to the film's official plot synopsis, the movie is a film about a trio of misfits whose irreverent, sexually charged dynamic evolves into a surprising love story as their spontaneous and flippant attitude towards the past or future backfires time and again, even as they inadvertently perform good deeds. In September 2019, a trailer for the Jesus Rolls appeared, albeit one dubbed in Italian to promote the film's release in Italy. As for the dynamic directing duo, the Coens aren't involved with this spin-off sequel, but they're still totally cool with Totoro making a part 2. Almost 2 decades after the first Space Jam mashed up live-action comedy, Looney Tunes animation, and professional basketball, Warner Bros. Announced in early 2014 that they'd be making a follow-up to the 1996 film. The original Space Jam starred NBA superstar Michael Jordan and featured appearances from a number of other NBA players alongside its animated cast. The sequel will star NBA MVP LeBron James, in addition to Don Cheadle, fresh off his almost decade-long stint in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. With a production team that includes Black Panther's Ryan Coogler and the Fast and the Furious series' Justin Lin, Space Jam 2 will be helmed by director Malcolm D. Lee. Lee wasn't the first director attached to the film, though. He stepped in for Terrence Nance, who departed the production on good terms in July 2019, citing creative differences. The film is set to hit theaters on July 16, 2021, almost a full quarter of a century after the first film premiered. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.